Welcome to the next edition of Drinks with Aston Legal Group. My name is Adrian Indovina and I'm one of the principal lawyers of Aston Legal Group. We practice in all areas of family law. For those of you watching, we invite you to like our Facebook page to keep up to date with any news that we have and the latest issues relevant to family law and society in general. Today I have the privilege of interviewing Michael Bidwell from Herbert Smith Freehills. Michael is also the Vice President of Pride in Law, an organisation driving positivity and awareness, and of which Aston Legal Group are proud sponsors. Thank you for joining me, Michael.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and first and foremost, what wine are you drinking there?
A Sauv Blanc, of course.
A Sauv Blanc, very nice. Well,
yes.
I'm actually on I'm on a rosé. I'm on a rosé. It's Peter Lehman. I love this. Right, and this bottle is empty, believe it or not. But,
you started early.
It's mainly from last night. I was a bit naughty last night, but thank you for joining us. And so tell us, you're in environment and planning law, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yep, and you're at Herbert Smith Freehills. You've been there for a while, Michael?
It's getting close to 2 years now. Yeah.
Are you enjoying your time there? And
yeah, I love it. Yeah, no, and I think a big part of it comes down to, because I really love working with my boss. She's just an absolute legend. And I think I got advice early on that if you get on with your boss and you have the same values as your boss, then it usually works out for your career.
And now I noticed an accent there, because you're meant to be saying boss, but I know boss, it's South African, isn't it? Or
no, everyone always gets it wrong.
Where is it? Where's that accent from?
Yeah, no, I grew up in the States, which we just had quite a presidential debate today. So I'm pretty happy to be over here. But yeah, I moved here on my own at 19.
At 19, you moved here on your own. Wow. So your family's back in the States, are they? Or
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And so you just said Australia's somewhere where I want to be, or new start, or?
Yeah, I guess just quickly, the story basically was when I was about 15, I was trying to decide where I wanted to go to uni. And I signed up to a website that kind of sent you emails from different unis, because I grew up in Michigan. So I kind of wanted to go to uni outside of Michigan. It was going through quite a bit of economic turmoil at that time.
Right.
And I ticked international, thinking, why not? And Griffith Uni emailed me and said, you know, g'day. Do you want to?
And you thought, I'm going to go to Australia, of all places.
Of all places. And so I just said to Mum, let's go over and visit. We had never actually been out of the country until that point.
Wow.
And a funny story is that we stayed in the Backpackers Above Down Under bar. So that was a cultural experience for Mum. But we got through it. And then I just kind of said at that point in my life, if I don't do it then, so at 19, I probably would never, because now that I'm nearly 28, I definitely see how work and, you know, other commitments can keep you grounded. So I was glad I kind of took the jump at a time when, you know, pre-spirit at that age.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of distractions and you can end up drifting, or, you know, a lot of people have acting careers or music ideas, and you probably think it's good that I stuck at least studying and getting through some qualifications to fall back on, I suppose. Yeah. And tell me, so how are you so successful now? You're at Herbert Smith Freehills, one of the huge organisations. You're doing environment and planning law, and I gather that's something that you're quite passionate about.
Yep.
And so, you know, how did you land here, essentially?
Yeah, I think when you're really certain of yourself and your identity, you then kind of start making decisions for your career from that. So I think, you know, growing up openly gay, my identity was questioned all the time. And so I had to really work out who I was at an early age. And I think that then pushed me to find my passion, which is environment and planning law. And I've kind of made decisions from that and continually had to reinforce where I wanted to take my career path. But it's worked out really well.
It's been a struggle to get there, it sounds like. It wasn't an easy path.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
no, and I think that's my one of my biggest learnings is that there's always ups and downs and turnarounds and everything. But
yeah,
um, if you keep at it, then I think you do find your place.
yeah. And so you're also the vice president of Pride in Law, and I gather that's something close to your heart, and
Yeah,
also, you know, what you've been through in life. What was the sort of toughest, the lowest point that you can remember, where, you know, it was, whether it was bullying or just, you know, self confidence or whatever it was?
yeah.
What was the lowest point?
I think the lowest point was probably a few years ago, right before I got into Pride and Law. I was in a workplace where, there was no committee for inclusion of the rainbow community, and there were a lot of people there that, really didn't support it. And a lot of comments were made, like I did have a partner say my sexuality would hold back my career. And so I was facing it
Oh,
in the work front of, people really questioning my identity in the profession. And then I was also in an abusive relationship. So it was like two
oh,
pillars.
yeah,
And it was kind of like I was stuck in this cycle of just trying to survive, really.
yeah. You felt like you were sinking.
Yeah, because I had it in, the professional space and the personal space.
Yeah,
And it's so interesting now because now I'm in such a beautiful workplace. I've really found my confidence in myself. And so it's kind of like I was put in the very rock bottom a
yeah.
few years ago. And I've kind of been able to go on this journey with Pride and Law, advocating for things that really sit close with my heart and I know affect a lot of lawyers who do identify in the rainbow community.
Yeah. So, was there any recourse for this scumbag, if I can call him or her that, that put you down? Well, there's no recourse for these people, are there? They just sort of
Yeah. I
go
think,
along and
one of the, I think, greatest successes of my career has actually been getting that firm to create a rainbow community network.
well
And
done.
it's still going. And I helped lead it for a year and a couple months, but then I just got tired. And I think you can't help others unless you help yourself first. So I just said, it's time for me. Like I've done my part and it's time for
Yep.
me to move on. But when we were launching the network, there were people in the room who had said comments like that partner, and the partner launching it said, if you have anything to say against this initiative, speak now or forever hold your peace. And for the first time, they went silent. So it completely shifted the power dynamic that I no longer had to be silent and they were silent with their, outdated and just
Oh,
disrespectful views. Like I'm not
yeah.
asking people to change their opinions on things. I'm just asking, you to treat everyone with respect,
Yeah.
particularly in the workplace.
Yeah. I remember when I first started, I was a pimply faced little lad, you know,
Yeah.
I was lucky to get this job, and I won't. You can't mention the firm. I mean, I won't. But it was, you
Mhm.
know, there was about 10 or 12 partners. They were all old men.
Yeah.
You know, even the smell in the air was stale and stanky, and some of the stuff that would go in the kitchen. I don't know what it was, but you'd all come together in the kitchen, and we had a lot of young girls around, and yet these older men. One in particular would like rub his hand up and down their back. You know, they would shiver and they would shudder. And I'd say, why don't you tell someone? And the overarching comment was always, oh, he's making too much money for the
Mm.
firm. Nothing's going to happen to him. And I just couldn't believe that. Like, I just thought, you know, you come from school, you go to university, you get to this, you're a lawyer, you feel proud, you think, oh, I want to get my Porsche 911, that was my dream, and, you know, get my apartment in the city or whatever.
Yeah.
But then you notice that it really comes down to, you know, money sometimes, well, not, you know, at that old firm it was, but money and the way this guy was treating people. He didn't get fired. Nothing ever happened to him.
No. Yeah, and it's the assumption. Well, I think the power imbalance is confronting, and it's scary to try and challenge it.
Yeah.
But yeah, my advice to people is that when one person speaks out, it makes it easier for the next person, which makes it
Yeah.
easier for the next person. I'm not
Oh,
saying, and I think a lot of people are afraid that it will have a forever impact on their career. And I guess that's what I advocate for, is like, I did speak out, and yes, it definitely changed a lot of people's perspective at that firm that I was at, but now I'm at Herbert Smith Freehills. So it's like, you can speak out if you feel comfortable, and start challenging some of these serious issues that are not only in our profession, but in society in general.
Yeah. Yeah, I just felt like a young man. I mean, I got bullied by one of the partners pretty bad. I felt like he always had it out for me as well. Yeah, you try and avoid them, come in at different times or not go to lunch at certain times, but they hunt you down. It's really uncanny. But there was no sort of recourse. So it forced me 2 years in to think, you know what, I'm gonna leave law. I said, I'm just going to leave. This is not for me. I'm not going to be treated like this. I had staplers thrown at my head, and I was called all sorts of names under the sun. And, you go home, you don't sleep at night. You have all these worrying times. It feels like a lifetime ago, but also it feels like yesterday.
Yeah.
Well, there's nowhere for me to go. So I actually went to the bar and I became a barrister, but it was probably premature to what I wanted to do. Anyway, enough about me. But, I think if there was just some sort of avenue for young lawyers to go to, other than sometimes at the firm, because sometimes at the firm, everyone's with that bully, So,
it's usually a pattern of behavior, really. It's like they learn it through their journey in law, and they inflict it on others.
Yes. Like, he used to say to me all the time, I got it worse than this. And, and then they'd take you to lunch. Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. I'm used to this, but I think, and testament to me as a character and as a person, I was raised well, I think, by my parents. I don't bring that on with my juniors.
Good.
I don't lose my cool, even when I'm stressed. I don't yell at people. I don't call them names or whatever. We're all learning, and just to have that patience.
Yep.
Because law is a stressful gig. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, it absolutely is. And I think your reaction to stress says a lot about you, because everyone makes mistakes, but basically everything can be fixed. And it's more about working through it solution focused and going, okay, how are we going to fix this? Rather than, yelling and screaming and, bullying, because that doesn't make that just shows that I think it shows you're insecure. If you're willing to bully someone else, it's because you're not confident in yourself.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So Pride in Law, what sort of objectives do you have? You're vice president there, to drive that message here in Victoria and in Australia. What's the objective for the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, we have 3 main pillars. So education, visibility, and advocacy. And we think those 3 pillars really help guide us to making genuine change in the profession. So from the visibility point, we host educational events to showcase and not only rainbow and ally lawyers in the profession, but also the issues that those lawyers and legal professionals face, and also just in society in general, just to get people more aware of what's going on. And that ties in then also with the education, because if people don't know something, then they don't know what they can do about it. There's so many times that, not only allies, but people in the community are like, I just wish I knew more. I wish I knew what I could do more, things like that. So we're trying to empower people with resources and tools to help them kind of be the best ally that they can be. And then advocacy, we've done a lot of work in the domestic violence and abuse space, and we've been doing quite a bit of work recently with conversion therapy, so pushing governments to actually bring in legislative change to make it a crime. So we've had some success in some jurisdictions, and we have a long way to go, but it's really important, because I think, as lawyers, and as we have a lot of skills that are very useful in these spaces, and we, learn how to advocate, we learn how to construct the best argument, we learn how to persuade people. And so those tools are very helpful for all forms of diversity and inclusion, to make sure that we are trying to, as a profession, in my view, represent the community that we serve. So trying to get more people into the profession that represent different walks of life and different experiences, to make sure that our profession is actually representing, who we act for. Because our
Yeah.
clients are changing. I mean, I'm sure you're saying our clients are changing, their expectations are changing, which is helping drive a lot of great progress. So I think that's just going to keep going.
Yeah.
And I heard someone explain it on another panel that it's almost like diversity and inclusion is on the path of like safety legislation, because for the longest time no one cared. And then we started going, oh, maybe we should start doing things voluntarily. And then legislation was eventually brought in that now it's like absolute essential, and it's actually like proactive.
Yeah.
So we might start to see work in that space. But it's good that, I think we've got good starting ground and we're making progress.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I can just speak from my time as a barrister as well. I found it a little bit archaic, or, some of the sentiments that will get thrown around. It's sort of like a big boys club to a degree. And that's also in family law, the family law space, which is, we had a lot more females as well, which was great to even up the numbers. But you could just imagine in other areas like commercial or criminal or something where there's more men. But I thought some of the comments that would go around, there's no training for these older guys. Like, there's no training, and they just sort of get away with it, and it's quite appalling at times. Yeah, it's really it hits you. You go away and you just think, I mean, these people are just ignorant. Ignoramuses.
Yeah, and I think it's linking back to, like you said, as a junior, where you start to think, oh, do I really belong in this profession? Or because I think there's been a lot of, and look, it has been a traditional way for a long time. I think that's changing, but I think, even the way the media and TV shows and movies present it, it's this very like archaic way. And in practice, then there are a lot of archaic practices that then you're sitting there going, oh, this all feels wrong to me. Whether you are affected by the comments or not, you still kind of go, something's not right. But I think that's then, I mean, you work so hard to get a law degree, and you countless nights of studying and all the rest of it. And I think you just then have to go, what can I do to help make it better? Now you've worked so hard to get there. You can take small actions to,
Well, you're doing a lot. At 28 years of age, you're taking over the world. Next step would be world domination. That's always better than the next guy. Probably do better than Donald Trump. I think you should run. Go back to America, run, and then come back.
Yeah.
What advice?
I can be president while still working here.
Easy. Yeah. And what advice do you have for young people coming up in this in the legal profession that may be bullied, whether it's for their gender or choices, or just in general? What advice, from your experience, could you give these people?
I think there's always going to be people against you. That's not going to change. And I think what you learn over time, and I don't know if it's with age, you just stop giving as much of a shit about what other people think, but you do start to realize that the only opinion that matters is your own opinion of yourself.
Oh, I love that.
And it takes time. Some of us, aren't, born with that confidence, and it is, about working on it. But I think it's about always trying to take steps to make it better for yourself. So if you are questioning certain things about your career, or where you're heading, then surrounding yourself with the right people, finding a mentor, finding, a group like Pride in Law, or a group that you kind of can then bounce with, because really it's easy to get kind of caught in the spiral of, everyone going against you, but you then just counterbalance that with the people who support you and want to be on your side, because that helps you balance out in your own head, the opinion that you have of yourself.
Oh, that's good advice. And you said that with domestic violence, Pride in Law are now entering into that sort of space and helping out in that space. What initiatives are they doing in the domestic violence space? Because that obviously comes with what I do.
Yeah, definitely. So in May 2018, we held our first event, and we had Magistrate Strofield, who up here in Queensland heads the Domestic and Family Violence Court.
Huh.
And at that time, he spoke about the difficulties of society and legislation kind of only recognizing, male perpetrator, female victim,
Yeah.
which we know statistically that is, a majority. But there were all these situations being left out, and the legislation at that time was kind of drafted as always consider, effectively protection of the female.
Yeah.
But what happens when you have two men, two women, people of different, transgender and non-binary, and from a judicial standpoint, how do you, enforce that legislation in the court? And so it kind of sparked this discussion, and then the legislation has been updated, which is great. And so then in 2019, we had the police talk about their response to this, and kind of educating people on different forms of abuse that may not be as relevant in heterosexual couples. So, for example, threatening to out someone to their family if they're not out, holding on to hormone therapy, drugs, and all that. So it kind of reminded people there's this sector of the community that faces domestic and family violence, trans women being denied entry into safe places for women. And it kind of started this conversation of people going, oh, we really need to do more in this space. And so all these community groups have started coming together, and there's, now an LGBTI Domestic Violence Awareness Day. And it's really ensuring that as we talk about domestic and family violence, we are including all parts of the community, because there's intricacies within every community, and First Nations and cultural and linguistically diverse, where you're trying to make sure the messaging isn't just the stock standard messaging that we've always seen, because then people, like in my own experience, I felt effectively excluded, or I didn't think I was actually suffering domestic violence and abuse, because I was like, oh, maybe this is just normal, or because there wasn't any tools or resources out at that time. So there's been a lot of tools and resources put out, and we're working on different legislative change and policy change with those community groups. So it's as we know, with all forms of domestic violence, it's a long way to go, but I think you're starting to see some really great collaboration, which I don't think you've seen before.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, just from our experience, since COVID's hit, we've noticed a spike in domestic violence cases, and same-sex couples and traditional couples and whatever it is, but we've noticed that living together, would you agree that sometimes doesn't bring out the best in people? I think it either makes or breaks a relationship, effectively. We see them sort of broken, but I hope there's some good ones out there that are.
I know, I always say to people, no one goes to a lawyer with like a good news story.
There's never. Maybe with environment and planning, you might get a good news story. I don't know, but
we generally help to make it, a good news story. We get it on the right track, but when it first starts, it's usually not in a good place, but we get there. I'm sure you do with some of the clients and relationships that you work with. Sometimes it's just about working through the difficulties, and then you make it a good news.
That's how I sort of ended up where I am. I just wanted to help people, and I started doing commercial law. So I was in commercial law, and there was this partner that was bullying me, right? So the one that I was talking to you about, and then there was a female partner there. She was probably the youngest one, and she was doing family law. And she was a lot nicer than some of the other ones. And I said, oh, I want to try family law. And then all of a sudden I'm doing this just because, like you said, you want to align yourself with a good mentor who's not yelling and screaming at you, and you feel safe, to go to work. So that's how I end up in family law. But then also there's this whole psyche that I like of, how couples stay together and how they fall in love and how they fall apart. And I really enjoyed that. And I thought I could learn from that experience. But to help people, essentially, I think to be a good lawyer, that's what we need to do. are you open to mentoring younger people at your firm or outside your firm? Do you
Oh
do that?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And what I like about my firm is we also do it's almost like reverse mentoring, where actually partners get paired up with graduates or junior solicitors, and the partners actually learn from the graduates or junior solicitors. It's usually like a two-way street, but
Yes.
there's actually a program in place that it doesn't just have to be, you know, the traditional hierarchy top down. It can also be bottom up, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of new challenges and a lot of new expectations. You know, millennials are coming into workplaces with very high standards, which I think is good, because it's
Yeah.
helping force a lot of, you know, discussions that potentially have, you know, not happened for a long time. And
Yeah.
so,
Expectations or entitlements?
oh, well, yeah, no, some definitely have entitlements that you
Yeah.
kind of have to, and I always say to people, I'm like, you know, when you see the world through your prism. So when you've been in the profession only for, you know, a year or two, you're like, oh, it hasn't changed at all, and you know, blah blah. I'm like, but when you look at someone who's been in the profession for decades, they can tell you it's changed dramatically.
It's changed dramatically for me. I've been in it for nearly 2 decades now, and even I remember first starting. Some
Mm,
judges would fall asleep on me. I'd be making my submissions, and these old guys in their 80s or 90s would just be falling asleep. And you'd wait until you're about to give your punchline, and you'd slap the table to wake them up. It was bloody hilarious. And now to see
that's
how far it's
amazing.
come, that
Yeah.
I mean, in the family law space, they do a good job. Yeah,
Mhm.
from what it used to be, now they at least read the cases. They're on
Yeah.
top of it. They really are trying to streamline it as much as they can,
Yeah.
and they're still under resourced. It's an ongoing problem. The courts being under resourced. There's just not
Absolutely.
enough. Yeah, there's more people divorcing and separating, and there's not enough judges to hear it, essentially. But have you found that in your space, Michael, or not really?
Yeah, well, it was only a few years ago that we had to get two new judges appointed in Queensland for planning and environment, because they also sit in crime. So they do, uh, you know, they're trying to balance these environment and planning, often civil proceedings, sometimes criminal, with, you know, general crime.
Yeah,
And so
right.
you're trying to find the balance of, you know, they need to do enough of that to stay on top of it, but also having enough resourcing to, you know, support the planning and environment community. And yeah, that I think, you know, the courts, barristers and solicitors have been really trying to work with each other. It's not perfect, but I think, you know, we're trying to work with each other to make it as efficient of a process as possible, and also as accessible as possible, you know, for community groups and community members. The intention of the court is to be available. But as you know, a lot of people don't often know when they have legal rights or how to take that on and all of that. So I agree with you. It's all a work in progress, but I think there's this genuine, yeah, atmosphere of trying to make it better.
Yeah. I need to ask you a funny story, and I hope it involves that wonderful shirt you're wearing. But can you tell me, firstly, where did you get that shirt from? It's a nice flamingo
I
shirt,
know.
is it?
I'm trying to remember where I actually got this one from. I might
That's a
have to
good
come
one.
back to you on it, because
Yeah, yeah, right.
I
You don't
didn't
want to
even
give it
think about
away. I
coming up
like
with this
that.
one. Yeah, yeah. No, it's one of the partners here. It's one of his favorites.
Okay, yeah, good, good. Don't give it away.
Yeah, yeah,
So tell me, have you got a funny story when you're up and coming, or recently, or got any funny stories for the viewers?
yeah. I'm trying. I think one of the funniest is one of my first court appearances, and I won't say, you know, who or all the circumstances, but
Yeah, don't
basically,
give us the details yet.
yeah, there was this horrific Courier Mail article about the judge the day before I appeared, and it was almost alleging that the judge had a bias in a particular case,
Okay.
and posted this horrendous article, horrendous photo of him. Um, and I went for my first appearance. The senior associate came with me and said, "Oh, you'll be fine. Like, it's all going to be fine. You just," and I had to seek leave to appear because I wasn't admitted at the time. And I was
Yeah.
like, and I just got absolutely hammered with every question.
Yeah,
'Cause
of
I
course,
think
that's
the
always the
judge
way.
was
Don't
just
worry about it,
like,
you'll be fine. And you
let
just get
me,
smashed.
yeah,
Yeah,
let me release some tension, which I understood, but
yeah,
like after, but I was like, okay, this is not fun. Like I do
yeah.
not,
Never doing that
luck-
again.
yeah, luckily I'd prepared, but it was just hilarious because it was so easy breezy going up to it. Oh, it's gonna be fine. And but I think those experiences really teach you to always over prepare.
Yes, yes. That's always,
Really,
yeah, that's always the case. Good advice.
and you almost have to take, when, because it was a lot of hard questions, and obviously I didn't know the answer to some of them, and you're facing all this criticism and feedback, and in front of everyone. And I also learned at that moment that sometimes you don't know the backstory of
Oh,
why
yeah,
someone's been hurtful. And
yeah,
I think it links to, I always think hurt people hurt other people. And
yeah,
obviously, that judge had been hurt by not only the allegations, but also just the article in general and
yeah,
everything. And after it, and once I understood it, I was like, I understand, obviously it wasn't absolutely necessary what happened, but you start to understand, and then you can understand why people act the way they do. So
yeah,
it was like just this like funny experience, then got really serious, and then I learned a lot from it. So I think,
yeah.
yeah,
Sometimes, though, just because they're in a position of power probably doesn't give them the right still. Sometimes
yeah,
I've seen some really, horrible, sort of yelling matches across the bar table from the bench. And I have, I've personally said that's just not warranted. There's a way to treat people, and in any other profession, correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, but you probably wouldn't hear that or see that. That
yeah,
tirade of yelling and screaming and calling people names and get out of my courtroom. And so I think everyone's having a stressful day. Just take a deep breath, and if they're a junior, you've got to make allowances for that. I mean, even
yeah,
with me, when people first start and they're juniors, you've got to make allowances. They're not going to know things that someone with 20 years experience is going to know.
yeah, yeah,
Um, I had a judge yelling at me once, and he's still on the bench, and he was yelling, and as he was sort of yelling, I thought he was winking at me, so he was sort of going like that, and I thought, oh, he's loving my submissions, and I'll just shut up. Anyway, he was that angry with me that it was the eye twitching. So I walked out, and I got a bad result, and I thought, oh my God, I think he was like angry at me. That's why he was sort of
That's
going,
right.
well, I thought he was winking at me, like, okay. Because I looked up, I had my notes, and I looked up, and I thought he's winking. Oh, great, I'll be quiet.
Yeah, that's right.
So you got to learn. You got to pick up these body signs and make sure you're on the right track.
Yeah. But sometimes it's hard. You think you know how it's going, and then a sharp turn. But
Look,
I think that's
and
part of the fun of it, really. I
yeah,
think,
and you can't pick them, can you? Like the ones that you think you're gonna really smash and win, sometimes you end up losing, and the ones that you think,
yeah,
I've got no chance here. So we do the best we can. All we can do as lawyers is present the best possible case that we can for each
yeah,
individual client.
yeah,
Prepare the documents, prepare yourself for all these questions, and give it the best shot you can.
yeah,
And
yeah,
not wear
that's,
it too much as well. Don't
yeah,
take it home with you if you can.
yeah. And I think that's what's really good with my current boss is she always says, as long as you do the best that you can, then you've done that's it.
It's up
Like,
to the
because
gods, up to the
the
judges.
outcome you can't control.
Yes.
And
Yep.
so,
The evidence.
yeah. And I think it's something you kind of learn over time, because I think when you first start, it's almost like I think unis kind of create this environment of, you always have to do well, or you always have to be the best and all that. But really, it's like, no, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
And you should lose,
Yeah.
because then you learn a lot from losing,
Yeah.
and then you kind of take it on with you going forward. And but as long as you can't change the facts and you can't change the evidence. You can
Yeah.
only present the best arguments,
Yeah.
and try and get the best outcome. Yeah.
That's right. And yeah, it's well said. And soften the blow for the client. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I've found for clients and making sure they're happy is just keeping them fully informed.
Yeah.
Um, and as long as they're fully informed, because it's overwhelming for these people, they come to this unnatural environment and
Mm.
they haven't slept for a week. They're all anxious. So just try and keep them as informed as possible, and explain to them some of the terminology. I found that's really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think empathy as well, because for your client, it's their case, it's their, they're so invested no matter what area of law you practice. And so you have to, feel that with them and, not just call them and say, oh, this is how it went, done.
Yeah.
This is how it went, and here's, what this means overall, or, I understand the stress of not knowing yet, or, what this outcome mean. And because if you don't express the empathy with them, then I feel like you're just, fitting into that stereotype of being robotic and, not really caring.
Yeah. And that goes against our grain sometimes, because at uni you're taught to analyze and be critical of your thinking, but that empathy is probably not taught so much as even relating to people, just relating and talking to people. There's no classes on that. And I found that when I first entered as a barrister, that was just essential to be able to talk to people, different walks of life. One day I would have a CEO or a medical doctor or whoever, and the other day I'd have a tradie, and you've got to balance yourself a bit as well, and think about who you're talking to and whether they'll understand what you're saying. Yeah. Michael.
Oh, sorry, you go.
No, you go for it. No, please, Michael.
I was just going to add, because sometimes, I'm dealing with operators out in the middle of nowhere, and it's a "good day, mate" email.
You say that so well.
Yeah. I've learned over the time here.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you for talking with me and Aston Legal Group. It's been an absolute pleasure. You're going to take over the world next time I see you, so I appreciate you talking to me at this stage. Vice President of Pride in Law, Herbert Smith-Freehill's lucky to have you, and I love that shirt. Please inbox me and let me know where you got it from. But thank you so much for your time. And viewers at home, if you've got any family law questions, please contact Aston Legal Group, and we'll see a lot more of Michael Bidwell, I'm sure of that.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Adrian.
Thanks, Michael. Have a lovely evening.
Yeah, you too.
Okay, bye.